One of the world's truly famous sights, the Golden Gate Bridge, sheathed in fog at the entrance to San Francisco Bay. And in the harbor of this great city, Alcatraz, the Rock, a former prison turned tourist attraction. San Francisco, of course, has its cable cars and the infamous twisty switchbacks of Lombard Street. But for an attraction of a far straighter design, go north of the city to Sears Point International Raceway, home of NHRA's Autolite Nationals. This weekend marks the 10th running of the Autolite Nationals here at Sears Point Raceway in the Napa Valley region of Northern California. And this sun-drenched capacity crowd has already witnessed a decade's worth of drama. We're under the bright yellow canopy at the Pennzoil trailer of Eddie Hill, the #1 qualifier in Top Fuel. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave McClellan. And what you are looking at is a work in progress. And there is one particular reason why the crew is hard at work building a brand new race car for Eddie Hill. And that reason made itself evident in the first qualifying session on Saturday. Hill was in the near lane in the Pennzoil car. 467 at over 310. And then disaster struck. The car coming apart just after it crossed the finish line. The driver protection cell held up and went into the sand trap with Eddie Hill on board. From this camera angle, you get an idea of the devastation that Hill's vehicle suffered. The wing collapsed, the tires let go, the rear end came off, the nose of the car came around, and it hit the guardrail. Eddie was along for the ride, which ended up in the sand trap. The NHRA Safety Safari extricated Hill from the remains of the vehicle. Eddie was airlifted to a local hospital, thoroughly examined, and returned to the racetrack just a few hours later to a rather emotional meeting back at the pit area, as the crew was definitely glad to see Hill back in action.
Well, the car felt like it left good and picked the front end up, and then I noticed somewhere seemed like between quarter and half track, it was still carrying the front end, and the car was really marching. And then the car made a violent move. It seemed to me like the way I recall, right after I dropped the chute and shut the fuel off. And the thing did such a violent twitch or whatever happened down there that it kind of disoriented me for a while. It seemed like something else hit, and then I opened my eyes briefly, and sparks are flying by, and felt like I was still running 150 mile an hour with the sparks just boogieing by me. Bad looking deal, but we're here. Got a spare car. The guys have already got the spare car out here working on it. And I don't know if NHRA is going to let me run it without being able to qualify it or what. I just got back from the hospital, so I don't have a ruling on that yet.
The ruling was that you have to run the car that you qualified, and obviously that was impossible. So Eddie Hill was at the starting line as the #16 qualifier. Spike Gore got the single to advance into round #2. After Gore crossed the finish line, Eddie walked up to the starting line, used his foot to stage, and the crowd, well, they just went crazy. Eddie and Ursi Hill. The good news is that Eddie is okay and looking ahead to the race at Seattle just 1 week away. Now let's take this chance to join Alan Reinhart with a look at all the action in Funny Car.
For years, Whit Bazemore was a hard luck story. A lot of fires, a lot of crashes, a lot of torn up equipment, zero budget. But Whit didn't give up. He stuck with it, and his perseverance has paid off. A big sponsorship package, now running the colors of Winston on the side of his Ford Mustang, and he picked up his first win in Topeka just a few weeks ago. Coming off of the win in Denver last weekend, Whit finds himself in second place in the points, and going into this first round matchup where he would face off with Mark Oswald in the In-N-Out gang in the best race of round one. Watch this at the finish line. It was 5:14 to 5:14, margin of victory just 0.07 of a second. Even Whit wasn't sure he won.
I tell you, I saw Mark, and then I didn't see him, and I thought, okay, baby, we're going down the track. And then I saw him again, and then I was looking for him, and I saw him the whole time through the light, so I really didn't think we'd won.
In the second round of competition, Whit's going to face off with Team Castrol driver Tony Pedregon. Now, Tony came in as the #1 qualifier. Ran Hoover in the first round. Should be a gimme, right? 1 against 16? That's not the way it worked. Tom stepped up to a 5:16 elapsed time, and only Tony's driving skills and a slower 5:21 was able to get the win light. So in round number 2, it'll be Tony against Whit. Give the lane choice to the red car with Whit's better ET from round 1. For the story now in the pro stock cars, let's catch up with Bill Stevens.
There really weren't very many surprises in round 1 of Pro Stock. All of the lower qualified cars were victorious, including the one you're inside right now, the Slick 50 Pontiac driven by Bruce Allen. Bruce will tell you he hasn't done very well here in years past, but this year he qualified 7th with a 7:04 at 195. And in round 1, he tweaked it up a little bit when he rolled a 7:01 at 196 to take out Mark Powick.
We changed a lot of things last night. We came here with a different setup. We haven't been doing good on race day and been qualifying good, but just missing our race day setup a little bit. So we thought we'd try something different here, and that's good for us so far.
And I'm sure Bruce Allen and the Rare Morrison team hope that good luck continues in round number 2. This is the McDonald's car to be driven by Cory Mac, winner a week ago in Denver. They're headed to the staging lanes for round number 2 Top Fuel. That's coming up in a moment. ESPN Speed World coverage of the 10th Annual Autolite Nationals is brought to you by Quaker State, the quality your car deserves. If the Golden Gate Bridge is the landmark that identifies San Francisco, well, the Vineyard is truly the landmark of the hillsides of the Napa Valley. And carved out of those rolling hills just south of Sonoma is, of course, Sears Point Raceway, the home of the Autolite Nationals. This is round number 2 of Top Fuel Racing, and you were looking at Spike Gore. He was the winner in round 1, obviously, when Eddie Hill could not answer the call. His opponent here is Dave Providence, a former boat racer. Take a look at the pairings. Gore and Providence, Scott Coletta and Mike Dunn advanced from their first round matchups. The other side of the ladder sees Joe Amato and Kenny Bernstein. What a battle there, with Gary Scelzi and Cory Mac going heads up in a challenge that can have an effect on the Winston points chase. Spike Gore, second-generation racer. His dad, Ralph Gore, one of the fuel system wizards of this sport, had qualified 16th and then just idled through in that first round run. A 4:91 was Providence qualifying time. That put him 9th and matched him against Robert Reel in the first round. And what a wild race that one was. Take a look. Providence in the Wheel Vintiques car was in the VAR lane. And look at the wheel stand by Robert Reel. They both got back in the throttle. Providence, after smoking the tires, he got there first with a 580 at 242 miles an hour. That 580 gave him lane choice over Gore here in round 2. Neither one of them had one of those picture-perfect runs you look for, but Spike Gore shocks everybody by going into the semifinals with a 5:19 at 259 miles an hour. Watch again in replay. The car in the far lane, Dave Providence, goes up in smoke. Spike Gore goes down the racetrack and then starts a lot of flame and oil throwing.
Spike, old buddy, you murdered it.
Well, yeah, sometimes you got to do that. These big boys, you know, they have these big budgets, and you know, they pedal them down through there, and they sacrifice one now and then. So we got one more in the trailer. We'll put it back together, and we'll come back for the next round.
Next pair here in round number 2 features Scott Coletta, two-time Winston champion. His opponent is Mike Dunn at the wheel of the Mopar dragster, owned by Darrell Gwynn. Dunn qualified 5th with a 482, beat Tony Schumacher in the first round. Scott Coletta, meantime, qualified in the number 4 spot with a 480. He ran 486 when he defeated Larry Dixon in the first round. That gives him lane choice here over Dunn. Let's take a look back in round number 1 as Mike Dunn and Tony Schumacher squared off. Beautiful shot from our onboard camera. Shows you Dunn bulling ahead at just the last moment to take the win with an elapsed time of 4:92. Oh, and then appears Dunn has some mechanical problems. Ed McCulloch, the crew chief for Scott Coletta, looks at the scoreboards and sees a 486 and 297. Scotty advances to round number 2. Take a look at this one more time. Watch the car in Navarre Lane. Dunn actually was ahead of Scott Coletta by just a few inches. And then something went wrong in the Mopar dragster. Right there. And Scott Coletta just streaked ahead and took the win. Alan?
Looked for a while like he might have been out there. Did you see him?
No, I didn't. Never saw him, but it looked like it tried to smoke the tires a couple of times out there, so I guess it might have been a battle of the brake handles. I don't know.
The drivers using the brakes trying to cut down on wheel spin. Here's Joe Amato and Kenny Bernstein. And earlier, Alan stopped by Bernstein's pit to take a look at this new fuel injector.
The reason these wings on the top fuel cars are so high in the air is real simple. They want them in clean air as opposed to the turbulent air that's down around the race car to keep them glued to the racetrack. Well, the Budweiser team has taken that clean air one step further. They have raised the injector scoop that would normally sit flat on top of the blower. It's up about 6 inches to keep it out of the turbulent air that comes off the top of the roll cage here. Now, the design of this not only gets air easy into the scoop, but it also helps it flow into the top of the blower. In dyno tests, crew chief Dale Armstrong says it has shown a radical improvement in boost. As far as how it works on the track, they don't have enough laps to know that just yet.
As Bernstein and Amato bring their cars to the starting line, let's take a look back at the numbers. KB qualified number 7 with a 487, then ran a 480, an improvement in the first round. Joe Amato, meantime, qualified in the number 2 spot with a 473. He ran 477, earned lane choice when he beat Shelly Anderson in the first round. All Kenny Bernstein could do was sit back and watch as Joe Amato in the Jimmy Proctoon car ran 475 and 305. The replay shows us a nearly equal start, but performance-wise, it was all Amato. We got just a momentary delay before our next bear fire. It'll be Cory Mac and Gary Scelzi, and they're locked in that Winston points chase. Coming into this race, Scelzi continues to maintain the lead.
This is my attempt at reading Joe Amato's mind. It's thinking, come on, Cory.
Yeah, you know, I asked Cory before we went up the run, can he do it again? He beat him up in Denver, and right now we need a little break, you know, in this Winston Points Championship, and Gary's been really steady. But for Jimmy Proc and the boys, you know, we had to get in and out of the car 3 times there for Keystone Key Parts. All I can say is praise the Lord. He gave me a good hot ride and went down the track.
Over the pit area, the rapidly improving and certainly popular Ron Capps talking to the fans in the Team Copenhagen pit area. More Top Fuel racing coming up next. Not far from the racetrack at Sears Point is this breathtaking view off the coast of California. Gorgeous scenery in and around the Napa Valley and along the coastline, and great racing here at this Autolite Nationals. Gary Scelzi in the near lane in the Team Winston car, trying to maintain his big lead in the Winston points chase. Cory Mac trying to close that gap just a little bit at the wheel of the McDonald's machine. Scelzi qualified 3rd at a 475. Beat Dave Remnick in the first round with a 468. Cory Mac, meantime, beat Bob Vandergriff with a 484 in the first round after qualifying number 6. The lane choice here, obviously going to Scelzi. That 468 thus far. Quick ET of elimination. And Scelzi out in round number 2. Cory Mac wins it at a 480 at 294. Look back again. The crew chief on Scelzi's car, Alan Johnson, may have had just a bit too much power and clutch. Right there, the loss of traction. He tries to recover, does momentarily, and then smokes the tires. Down at the far end of the racetrack, Cory Mac was congratulated by Joe Amato, because Amato is trying to beat Scelzi for the Winston title. Cory enthused indeed about that victory. because Cory Mac is in the number 3 spot. Here are the pairings for the semifinals. Scott Coletto picked his lane over Spike Gore, while Joe Amato has lane choice over Corey McLenithan. Bet they're not near as friendly in just a few moments.
Now, wait a minute, Corey. You and Joe Amato are whooping it up down here. You got to go to war in about 90 minutes.
Yeah, you know, that's okay, though. We're trying to catch up to the Scelzi kid. I mean, he's awful tough. Alan's awful awesome, and, you know, they deserve everything they get. But little guys like us got to have a chance to catch up, and that's all it's about.
Certainly one of the most crowd-pleasing cars ever invented. The nitro-burning funny cars of NHRA Winston Drag Racing. Here we go into round number 2. Take a look at the pairings. Whit Bazemore against Tony Pedregon. Chuck Etchells versus Tim Wilkerson, and that's the race we're going to watch. Ron Capps against John Force, and Kenji Okazaki and Dean Scusa square off. Every round 2 race, a great matchup. Take a look at the numbers for Tim Wilkerson. He qualified 5th at a 5:21, then stayed consistent with a 5:27 to beat Al Hoffman. Meantime, Chuck Etchells used a 5:20 to qualify 4th. Then he improved to a great 5:10 in the first round when he beat Mitch McDowell. That 5:10, low ET thus far of the entire event. Etchells with the lane choice, took the lane nearest the camera, the Kendall Super Winch car. Up against the JCIT, the John Costanza Institute of Technology machine. And Chuck Etchells, look at his time, 5:16 at 2:96, serving notice that if you're going to beat the black and white Kendall car this weekend, you're going to have to run really strong. Tim Wilkerson just blazed the tires. That ended his chances. Alan?
Well, Chuck, I realize that we're only halfway through the day, but so far, this car on this day has been nothing short of spectacular.
Well, I almost blew it for this car on that run, I'll tell you, Alan. I went in stage, and for some reason, I almost gave it the old double pump there, and I caught myself before I red lit, but I almost did something really stupid.
You don't want to get in the general's doghouse.
No, I've been there, done that. That's not a lot of fun, but, you know, we're just happy the car's running as well as it is. It's not hurting a lot of parts, and the whole Kendall Super Winch team's doing a great job here.
The general, of course, Tim Richards, the crew chief for Chuck Etchells, Kenji Okazaki, and Dean Scusa. A little earlier this season, Kenji picked up his first victory ever. Qualified 3rd here to great 5:17, beat Gary Densham in round 1. Dean Scusa had a number 11 qualifying spot with a 5:34 and improved to that 5:28 he used to beat Del Worsham in his first round match. Scusa at the wheel of the Matco Tools car. We're riding on board with him, looking right out the windshield, almost the point of view that the driver has. A lot of the top fuel drivers that move over to funny cars say that's the hardest thing to get used to. The confinement inside the body and the limited view that you have out the front and the side windows. After a couple of runs, doesn't take them long to become acclimated. And it is Kenji Okazaki trailing tire smoke across the finish line with a 5:28. Over in the pit area, Bill Stevens has had a chance to catch up to Gary Scelzi and find out his reaction on the loss to Cory Mac.
That's a great set of wrenches you got there, Gary, but it didn't work for the second straight week. What's going on with this Cory Mac guy?
Boy, I don't know. Cory is doing an outstanding job. You know, him and Green as a crew chief. But, you know, Team Winston, second round is still not bad. We feel we've gotten a lot closer with Alan's new cylinder heads and new car. So we can't be too down. We'll get reloaded up and go to Seattle. Mount Rainier in the background, all the trees. Alan's had a lot of success there, and I've won an alcohol funny car. So it's pretty hard to keep Team Winston down. We're looking forward to it.
Well, Team Winston has a chance here as Tony Pedregon is the opponent for Whit Bazemore. The question is, can Whit uphold the honor? Sears Point Raceway is a multi-use facility and, of course, located this close to San Francisco, has to have a cosmopolitan flair. And there's even an art gallery on location here at Sears Point. Sears Point Raceway, where the elite meet to be fleet. And fleet certainly describes nitro funny cars with speeds capable over 300 miles an hour. This guy's done that with Bazemore. Here he qualified 9th at a 5:33, and we saw him run that 5:14 when he beat Mark Oswald in the first round. Meantime, Tony Pedregon qualified number 1 at that 5:15, and we saw his race against Tom Hoover when Pedregon used the whole shot advantage, the advantage gained at the starting line, to beat a quicker elapsed time recorded by Hoover. He's going to need to be on his game here, though, because Bazemore, definitely a strong challenger. He had the lane choice, has selected the lane nearest the camera. Pedregon again got an advantage at the starting line. Ran a 5:22 for the win. Bazemore was trailing with a 5:23. One of the problems is Bazemore only ran 288 miles an hour, while Pedregon was over 292, with just unable to close the gap significantly at the finish line. That allowed Pedregon to advance to the semifinal round. Let's go down to the far end, and Allen.
Well, Tony, you didn't need it this time like you needed it last time, but you still left first, and at a 22-23, pretty good old drag race.
Well, they were tough. That's Mustang against Mustang. Don't care what they ran. I didn't see them, really didn't hear them, and we expected a good race, and we gave them one. So, Cory Mac tools, we're just plugging away. We need these rounds.
Whit Bazemore obviously disappointed going out in round number 2. He had hoped to close the gap between himself and the points leader, John Force, but not to be this day. And speaking of Force, he is the driver in the near lane up against Ron Capps. Earlier, Allen had a chance to look at some new engine technology that is being applied to the Force-mobile Mustang.
Not just the drivers and crew chiefs that want to go faster, but the equipment manufacturers are constantly trying to come up with a better mousetrap. This is the latest offering from Dart cylinder heads. Now, the intake ports are larger, the intake valves are larger. Obviously, you get more air into the motor, it'll make more power. Well, if you get more air in, you got to get it out. And the philosophy on the exhaust side is a little different. This valve is actually 100,000 smaller in diameter. That's 1/10 of an inch smaller than the old exhaust valve. But they've changed the seat angle. At a 55-degree exhaust seat, that hole in the cylinder head is the same size. So you can get the same amount of air out, and the valve is not in the way slowing it down. None less than 6-time Winston champ John Force is experimenting with these new heads, and how well they work, we'll have to find that out on the racetrack.
Well, that's been the question all season long. Are the problems that John Force is having in winning races the result of a slump, or is he trying a lot of new stuff? John defeated Cruz Pedregon in a great race in the first round, while Randy Anderson was the victim of the number 2 qualifier, Ron Capps. Well, if John's experimenting, they better go back to the laboratory, because Ron Capps just whipped him a 5:21 to a 5:21. Capps was 300ths quicker at the starting line in the Team Copenhagen car of Don Prudhomme. And as we watch it in replay, take a look at a great race for a rising superstar. Roland Leong coming on board a few races ago as the crew chief of the Capps machine has made a big difference in the confidence of this driver, and there was a half-car length margin of victory. Oh, is Ron Capps happy? I certainly think yes, he is. Here are the pairings. It's Tony Pedregon against Chuck Etchels. Chuck having the lane choice, and Capps will go against Kenji Okazaki, and Ron will be able to pick his lane.
A little excited about that, Ron?
Oh, my God. I don't know what it ran, but it rattled the tires pretty good. We didn't have lane choice. Oh, those fans, these guys are great up here. We're in the wine country. To beat John Force, I mean, they all ask you, who do you want to run? I'd rather run John. He's the best. If you beat the best,
He's a great guy, man.
You beat John, 21 to a 21.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, what a victory can do for one's confidence level. We're coming up next with Pro Stock. Stick around. 500 cubic inches, 1,300 gasoline-burning horsepower. And the fans here at Sears Point Raceway and this Autolite Nationals absolutely love Pro Stock racing. The factory hot rods. And here are the pairings going into round number 2. The number 1 qualifier, Jim Yates, going up against Steve Schmidt. Family affair, Warren and Kurt, father and son. George Marnell against Bruce Allen, and Larry Morgan challenges the surprising Dester Cameron. Why is Dester the surprise of the race? 7 times this season, Dester has failed to qualify. But here he put himself into the number 6 spot with his Chevy Beretta, ran 7:04, beat V. Gaines in the first round. His opponent, Larry Morgan, qualified a quick number 3 at a 7:03, then ran 7:09 when he beat Mike Bell in their first round match. Chevrolet against Pontiac, the Rebestos machine of Larry Morgan. Sacrificing lane choice, Dester earned it in the first round when he beat Gaines at a 7:06 pace. Had to come from behind because Morgan got himself an advantage at the starting line. And Cameron winning it at a 7:09. Here's our next pair into their burnout. The Slick 50 car. We've already seen it. Bruce Allen, the driver. And against him is George Marnell. Down at the far end of the racetrack, Allen is caught up with the Cinderella Kid.
Well, it warmed up and it slowed down, and who cares? You still won.
That was great. I knew it'd be a good race. Larry's a heck of a driver, and I figured it'd been one at the tree, but I think he got out in front of me a little bit, and then mid-track it seemed like he started shaking or something, and we drove on by him. But
you're trying to just head down the racetrack.
Just get from point A to point B out there now. It's tough.
It is tough indeed as the temperature comes up and the sun continues to beat down on this racing surface here at Sears Point. It becomes even trickier. Marnell was the number 2 qualifier at a 7:03. Gordy Rivera is victim in the first round. Bruce Allen defeated Mark Powick in the first round race when he ran 7:01. That definitely earned him lane choice here against Marnell. The quicker qualifier falls victim here to yet another final lapse time by Bruce Allen, a 7:06 at 195 miles an hour, puts Bruce into the semis. Warren Johnson in the GM Goodwrench Service Plus Pontiac in the near lane. In the far lane, Kurt Johnson in the AC Delco car. Allen?
Well, Bruce, it wasn't your best qualifying effort of your life, but this thing on race day is strong.
I think some of the changes we made were in the right direction. I'm tickled the way we're running. You got to make some changes when you're struggling along on race day, and I'm happy with our team.
The 2-car team of the Johnson family, Warren and Kurt, and with Warren obviously locked in that Winston points chase. He qualified here 4th and defeated Ron Krischer in the first round, while the AC Delco car driven by son Kurt was number 5 qualifier. With Warren in that Winston points chase, Kurt Johnson probably will not end up the winner of this event. And Kurt Johnson losing at the starting line via the red light routine. Warren Johnson at a 7:03 pace, right up there with the best times at 197 miles an hour, goes into round number 3, the semifinal. Here in slow motion replay, you can see Kurt Johnson. He just kind of rolled through the lights there, and that gave him the red light, which was instant disqualification and instant victory for Dan Warren. A little earlier, Alan stopped by the pit area of one of our next competitors, Jim Yates, and took a look at how Jim converted his Pontiac from the winning setup at the high altitudes in Denver.
After Jim Yates qualified #1 and won Denver, you'd think, why mess with success? Bring the car to Sonoma and let's go race it. Well, why? 5,700 feet difference in altitude. And just like all the Pro Stock cars, they had to change everything. Start with the rear end ratio. The 486 is gone. Back is the 477 that they normally run at sea level. Now, when you change the rear end, you also have to change transmission ratios. That is, all of the transmission ratios get changed. The only thing the same is the case. And of course, high gear is always 1-to-1 in these transmissions. And the changes don't end here. You also have to make engine changes. The jets and the carburetor are different. The valve lash is different. Even all the RPMs. The shift points actually come down. Since the car makes more power at sea level, they shift at 9,100 instead of 9,300. And the starting line RPM, that's down too. If you leave it up at Denver specs, you'll blow the tires off at low gear.
And of course, they faced that problem here due, obviously, to the intense sunshine that's been beating down on this track. Again, he qualified #1, beat Mike Thomas in the first round. His opponent, Steve Schmidt, wheeling the Dynagear Pontiac, defeated David Nickens in the first round with a 7:03. But the lane choice was earned by Yates, second, 6:99. Close race, but Yates pulls it out, 7:03 to a 7:05, nearly identical reaction times at the starting line. Yates just had the horsepower. The pairings for the final four: Allen against Cambron with Bruce picking the lane. WJ gets the lane choice over Jim Yates, and that could be a determining factor in that final four race that we'll be seeing in just a few moments. A huge crowd in the pit area here, and they are being reminded constantly, as I will tell you now, if you do not belong to the NHRA, you should join right now. Why? Because you got 48 issues of National Dragster, a patch, a pin, a rule book, and a whole lot more. And if you call the number on your screen right now, you'll pick up a copy of Drag Racing 96. Make that call right now. We're getting ready for the semifinals in Top Fuel Eliminator. It'll be Spike Gore up against Scott Coletta. Earlier, Alan took a look at Scott Coletta's fuel management system. Intriguing.
The fuel curve changes more than you might think on one of these nitro cars. That pump will pump 65 gallons a minute. The motor doesn't need that much fuel for the whole run. So there's a complex series of timers that bleed fuel off as it goes down the racetrack. Here on Scott Coletta's cars, every one of that orange boxes that you see down there is a timer. When Scott stands on the gas, it automatically starts the sequence and sets the timers off. They set them with this box. At 2.47 seconds, that timer is opening a jet back there to bleed fuel off. Now, exactly how much fuel is it bleeding off? I don't know. Crew Chief Ed McCullough said that was a secret. He wouldn't tell me.
Probably it'd have to hurt you if you knew. Spike Gore in the far lane, Scott Coletta in the near lane. The car formerly driven by his dad, Connie, who's here this weekend. Gore, no match for Coletta. Scott going to the final round with a great 488 at 294 miles an hour. Take a look again in instant replay. Spike Gore's problems finally got the best of him here in the final four, and his dreams of ending up in the final round went up in a big boom. At the far end, Allen's with our winner.
Scott, I am here to tell you that 488 is not going to be enough to win that final round. Can you guys step this thing up?
I don't know. We'll find out, won't we?
This place has been pretty good to you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this place is won at once, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Seems like every race that Cory McLenathan's in this middle of the season has a direct bearing on the Winston points chase. One round to go. He took out Gary Scelzi, the leader. Now he is up against the number 2 man, Joe Amato. That's Jim Brock, the wizard behind the engine tune-up on the Amato-driven Keystone car. He makes a check of the engine. He sets Amato where he wants him on the starting line, then runs back behind the car. See what happens. Cory McLenithan takes out the #1 and 2 cars in the Winston chase with consecutive round victories. Here he did it with a 486. Look again in replay, and I direct your attention to the Amato Keystone car. See all the white stuff coming out of the left-hand side of the engine? That's a drop cylinder, failed to fire. That's raw fuel. That means he's down some 700 horsepower, a valiant effort. He ran 492, but was unable to close the gap. So Cory McLenithan goes into the finals to race his good pal Scott Coletta, and Cory will pick his lane. Pro Stock semifinal round racing coming up next. An awe-inspiring view, that's what you get if you look up in downtown San Francisco. And here at Sears Point Raceway, if you look down, you're inside the car with Dester Cambron, one of our semi-finalists in Pro Stock. His opponent is Bruce Allen, who holds the lane choice here based upon his 7:06 elapsed time in the previous round win. The best Dester could run was a 7:09, and that lane choice may be important. You've heard all the drivers say how tricky this track is. Pulled a trick out of the books. He left the starting line first. 0.02 of a second advantage at the starting line gave him a win, even though Bruce Allen was quicker. Cambron's elapsed time was 7:10. Allen's was a 7:09. The margin of victory as far as elapsed time is concerned, when you add and subtract all the figures, was only 0.06 of a second. Dester Cambron picks up some slick 50 bonus money. Allen?
I'm starting to think about the different people that have had their first win right here at Sears Point over the years, Dexter.
I don't know what to say. We made a shock adjustment then, a wing adjustment, clutch adjustment. Went right down the track. In that lane, I feel real good. I think we're doing great.
There is a lot at stake in this, the last pair of the Pro Stock semifinal round. And the guy that has got the most interest in it is Warren Johnson. Why? Because he is #2 to Jim Yates in the points and has got to stop Yates here. Jim, on a winning streak that started in Denver a week ago, has got the performance advantage, even though he did not earn lane choice. That goes to WJ. Yates has run 6:99 thus far in elimination. And WJ falls back, has some mechanical problems. Yates advances to the final round, picks up 20 more points, and earns lane choice in the finals in the process. 7:08 at over 194 miles an hour. So now the only question is, will the luck of Dester Cambron continue for one more round? We'll find out in a few moments. Over in the fuel pit area, maintenance going on Cory Mac's top fueler. Right now, we're getting ready for the semifinals of Funny Car. Back at Sears Point Raceway at the Autolite Nationals, the general himself, Tim Richards. The crew chief for Chuck Eskels, pulling him forward into the staging beams. His opponent is Tony Pedregon, the top qualifier. Race was over at the starting line. Why? Because Etchells was late, even though he was quicker. 5:17 was the winning time. Etchells lost that race at a 5:14 pace at 299 miles an hour. And the car that has been the quickest in eliminations and the most consistent is out of competition. A great driving job by Tony Pedregon for yet another round victory. It was the driving skills of Tony that won it.
Pretty good combination. The car's thunder, and you're driving very well.
Well, I'll tell you that I think myself, the guys, Austin, Coyle, Bernie, we all complement each other, and it's just tough racing out here, and great to do it back here with our Autolite people.
And with John Force out of competition, Tony Pedregon picking up the tuning skills of Coyle and Federley. They're concentrating on that Castrol Mustang. Concentration, well, that's what Ron Capps is going to have here as he takes on one of the better levers that funny car has ever known. The quick reaction times of Kenji Okazaki at the wheel of the Moon Eyes car. That was Big Jim Dunn fanning the cockpit, trying to get some of the smoke out of it. Jim, of course, the La Mirada fireman that cut his teeth on drag racing some 30 years ago out in Southern California. Now the owner and tuner of the Okazaki-driven machine. This time, Capps got the advantage at the starting line and the finish line. A great 5:15 for the Copenhagen Don Prudhomme car. With Capps into the final round, look at this race. 5:15 at 290 miles an hour. Okazaki trailed a couple of hundredths at the starting line, and at the finish line, he had a 5:30 at 268. So that puts the two best drivers of the day, number 1 and 2 qualifiers, into the finals. Tony Pedregon against Ron Capps, and Capps will have the lane choice. Over in the top fuel pit area, let's join Bill Stevens.
Well, let's see if you can follow this. See, that tire says Amato on it. That's a tire that Joe Amato would have run in Denver last week, but he didn't need it. So the McDonald's team, they picked it up when they went to the Goodyear truck. They had it on the race car just a few moments ago, and then Mike Green, when you were putting heat in the motor, you noticed something. What was it?
Yeah, that right wheel and tire seemed to be wobbling a little more than we like, so we decided to take it off, and we got a set of tires out of the funny car trailer that they had just run that are about the same size.
See, that's what you get for running Joe Amato's used parts, see?
They're getting the McDonald's Pontiac ready in pro stock. You stay with us. Time for the pro stock final here at the Autolite Nationals, but quickly let's go over to the Ron Capps pit area. There's some problems. Bill's on hand.
I'm with Don Prudhomme. They're working on the race car. Snake, a little problem here or what?
Yeah, we've got the Miller team over here helping the Copenhagen guys, and yeah, we had a little problem. We started up, had an oil leak, and you know, those things are real crucial right now.
We'll find out in a moment if the repairs pay off for Ron Capps in the finals against Tony Pedregon in funny car. But right now, it is Jim Yates, the points leader, the top qualifier in pro stock, against Dester Cameron. Gave him a challenge for sure, but a 7:02 by Yates at 195 miles an hour was just a bit too much. Cameron at a 7:10, 194 mile an hour speed. Really watched Yates pull ahead in the last few hundred feet to about a car length victory. As we watch in replay, remember now, Yates has strung together 2 consecutive victories in that Team McDonald's car right here in this summer swing, the 3 in a row that'll end 1 week from now up at Seattle International Raceway. Now down to Allen.
Jim Yates has gotten out of the car, just taking his helmet off. Miss Winston has got a trophy and a hat for him, and Jim, here we are again in the winner's circle.
Ooh, thank God. I'll tell you what, Dester give us a handful out there. You know, this track's been coming around all day. We've been fighting it one way and the other, and you know, Jerry Bickle, Bob Ingalls, Jamie Yates, everybody back there. Rich Purdy did a great job with this McDonald's Donnie Mac's Pontiac Firebird today, and I'm proud of them, and I'm just happy to be driving it. Thank God we're here.
Nobody was able to close on Yates as he continues to win. WJ, Kurt Johnson, Bruce Allen, and Steve Schmidt trailing in the top 5. We're set for the finals of Top Fuel Eliminator. The American International Airways car of Scott Coletta against this man, Cory Mac, trying to make it 2 in a row as well for Team McDonald's. Oh, look at that car just streak ahead at the finish line, and Cory Mac wins another 471 at 310 miles an hour. And like his teammate in the previous race, it was in the last few hundred feet that Cory Mac just drove away from Scott Coletta. Coletta trailing in this run at a 482 with a speed of 302 miles an hour. Scotty had the advantage at the starting line, but Cory Mac has the win.
Instant replay of about a week ago when you joined your teammate Jim Yates in the winner's circle as Cory's just taking his helmet off, and you got Scott.
Again, how about it? I'll tell you, all these guys, they do such a great job working the car for me. They do all the work. I just put her from A to B.
Even though Gary Scelzi went out in round 2, he still has a substantial lead over Amato, McLenathan, Coletta, and Bernstein in the top 5 in the Winston points chase. Well, the engine's running in the Castrol Mustang for Tony Pedregon. The same for the Copenhagen car. So I guess the emergency repairs paid off for Ron Cap. Last race of the day here at the Autolite Nationals, our funny car final. And up in smoke goes Pedregon, and Caps wins his second race of his funny car career. His elapsed time, a 5.20 second elapsed time. His speed over 280 miles an hour. And Caps certainly beat all the big dogs this day. Alan?
Unbelievable day, Ron.
I'm a loss for words. I'm telling you, this it rattled the tires real good. I saw his fender, and it disappeared, and it's our second win. I mean, Don Prudhomme. I got such a great crew, man. These guys, I wish these guys could take us in for a ride. Every one of them. It's such a great job.
Well, nobody's been able to close on Force, who still has a big lead. Bazemore, Etchels, and the Pedregon brothers tied for 4th and 5th. Well, this has certainly been an Autolite Nationals that has lived up to expectations. A lot of surprises and a lot of consistent winners. For Alan Reinhardt and Bill Stevens, I'm Dave McClellan. So long from Sears Point Raceway. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Autolite Nationals has been brought to you by the more than 1,600 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the best parts in auto parts. And by Pennzoil, formulated for today's stop-and-go driving. Stop, go, Pennzoil. The Autolite Nationals has been a production of Diamond B Sports in association with ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.